Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of our special primary election series on 13 Now. I'm Mia Bell Salzano. Today is Tuesday, July 7th, and today we're talking with Bay County incumbent Superintendent Bill Husfelt. Welcome.
Thank you, Mia Bell. Appreciate it very much.
So, just for anyone who may not know you, which may not be a lot of people, can you just start by introducing yourself? Maybe talk a little bit about your background and your career here in Bay County.
Sure. I went to Jenks Junior High, Bay High School, graduated Bay High School in 1976. I've been in education for 38 years now. I'm happily married to my wife. We've been married 38 years also. Ironically, I got married 2 days before I started my first teaching job. I've done about everything you can do in the school system. I was a substitute teacher. I was economics, government teacher, a computer teacher, social studies, history teacher, assistant principal, and superintendent for the past 12 years. So I'm invested in Bay District schools.
What part of your career do you think has been the most valuable to take with you into being the superintendent?
Obviously being principal, because, and I tell people this all the time, the hardest job I ever had was being a principal. I was very blessed to be the principal of the largest high school, one of the largest high schools in Northwest Florida, for 12 years. I had a great staff, great students. I got to watch my daughters, all three of them, go through there from 9th through 12th grade and graduate there. But the experiences I learned on budgeting, hiring, dealing with complicated situations. I mean, 12 years of being a high school principal in that setting really groomed me well, I believe, to help me do the job I am doing right now, which I had the largest school, the largest budget in Bay District schools, and now I'm over the largest budget in Bay County with the most employees. And so the experiences I had as a principal really helped me get to this point where I am today.
So I guess as an incumbent, what are your top 3 priorities moving forward?
Well, student safety and well-being is the most important thing. And it's taken on different meetings at different times in our history of even Bay County. Unfortunately, the tragedy of Parkland made me move that to number 1. I used to have like 1A and 1B. 1A was academic achievement, and 1B was student safety and well-being. And now we've had to move that well-being and safety up to number 1. And the reason is because of the hurricane and now the pandemic and what all our children and students are facing. You stop to think about it, for 2 years now, all of our students have had their school year shortened or had tragedies they're dealing with in their personal lives and in the lives of the whole world right now. And so that well-being and taking care of the mental health and needs of our students is the number 1 priority. Academic achievement and improving is important, along with graduation rates. We have the highest graduation rate, the federal graduation rate, the way the federals calculated, that we've ever had in Bay District schools, have had for the last 3 years. I think that those 2 things are very important, but I can't just number it to 3 things. I think also you have to look at career and technical education for our students and look where we've gone with that. I mean, it's extremely important. We've gone from having 60 in 2011 certifications, students get certifications for career fields, to thousands every year now. We earn hundreds of thousands of dollars to put back, reinvest into our programs in our schools. And so those are the kind of things I'm proud of and want to keep doing, want to keep achieving, want to keep moving the needle forward so that our students have more and more opportunities, and our teachers are doing such an amazing job with all these programs.
So you were saying you like to focus more on technical training and
Well, not more on technical training. I think technical training is important, career and technical, because some of them might not be technical. One of our most popular programs that's growing now is construction. Now, you could say construction is technical or it's not technical. To me, anything with any kind of tools is technical, just the way I am. But I think those things are technical. We're talking now with heavy equipment operators about getting some of those trainings in our schools for students. Welding is starting this year in one of our schools. We wrote a welding grant a few years ago that got pushed to the back because of the hurricane, but welding is extremely important in this area because of the need for it and all the different companies that we have, but mainly the shipbuilding industry that we have here in Bay County now. So I mean, all those things. Our goal should always be to make sure that when a student walks across the stage, they have a plan. They have a plan to go into a career, whether it be a job or the military, or they have a plan to go to college. And some of them need multiple plans. So I think those things are very important that we help prepare them for those.
And there are many who believe that school grades have suffered due to charter schools in Bay County. And do you believe that that is the case? And if so, how do you plan to bring up the grades, and how do you plan to kind of address charter schools?
Well, you know, first of all, I believe in school choice. I've always believed in school choice. I think a parent should be able to decide where their child goes to school. Now, there are certain parameters because everybody can't go to the same school. You have certain capacity limits. But overall, when you look at the data, parents will decide if they want their child in a charter school or not. When we took office in 2008, there were 9 charter schools. There were 9 Title I schools, and now there's 21 Title I schools. Why did the Title I schools grow? Well, the reason the Title I schools grew is because we've shifted to 20% of our students are in charter schools now. Parents chose and selected for them to do that. When you do that, though, there's a consequence to the schools that you can't measure. Let me give you an example, and I know this is a crazy way to give this example, but I'm on to anyway. I said I went to Jenks. It was Jenks Junior High. In 1970, I was a 7th grader there. All my friends and everybody I can even think of I went to Jenks with had a mom and dad in the home, and they were middle class. I lived in the projects, and my mom was divorced and raised 3 boys by herself. I used those parents and my friends as my role models, and I competed for grades, and I saw how important family was to them. Not that my family wasn't important, but I saw how important a father being in life was. And so you go to Jenks today, and it's just the opposite of that. And that's what the sad part is, because some of the charter schools have pulled those involved parents and those kids that can be role models to the other kids who don't have it on a regular basis to help lift them up. And that's what I think we miss most. That's the cost factor of it. It's not that I'm against school choice, but when we do that, we're losing something. So what that means is we have to get mentors in the schools. We have to put more funding and more time into the teaching in those schools, because they don't have those extra things that were there when I was there.
Mm-hmm. So to supplement school choice, you'd like to put more resources into?
Definitely, and that's why they're Title I schools, because obviously, you know, people don't want to talk about poverty. People want to ignore poverty. Well, you can't ignore poverty. Poverty is a major factor in public education, and the challenges that we have because of poverty are huge. Now, is it an excuse? No, every child can learn. I understand that. But poverty, and this is not a quote from me, I read this years ago from someone, that poverty is the 50-pound backpack that most children carry around that you can't see. And so we have to do things to help that child that is impacted by that poverty, that parents work 2 or 3 jobs and can't help them with their homework, children that live in environments that they shouldn't live in, children that are in situations personally that we need to save them from. We need more role models for those children to interact with them and to help them to see that their life can be better and that they do have a chance to succeed in life.
So I want to kind of go...
Am I talking too fast for you?
No, you're not. I want to kind of go back to your point about safety being one of your priorities, and kind of in the age of COVID and trying to reopen schools safely, a lot of experts say that being outside and having more fresh air and open spaces is safer. But how do you plan to address, keeping students safe against outside threats versus keeping them safe against virus threats?
Well, and I think somebody asked me something about, do you now keep the classroom door locked? Do you, because of school safety and violence, or do you leave it open to get the air circulating? There's no easy answers to any of these questions. The challenges we've got right now dealing with COVID are, what can we do that we believe is the best thing for students to keep them safe and for the employees to keep them safe. And we had the long workshop today, 3-hour workshop, where we put the challenges before the board, and next Tuesday the board's going to vote on our recommendations on what they want us to do. But there's no easy answer. While you say, the article you read, it's safe for them to be outside as long as they're not within 6 feet of each other, and as long as, you know, they're not breathing or spitting on each other or whatever. And so, you know, the challenges are huge, and the idea of mask, different data tells you different things. You can, here's a true story. I reached out to the Doctors Association in town, said, look, tell us, can you give me a concise statement about how you feel about opening schools? And they are amazing, the Emerald Coast Doctors group in town. They sent me a link to the American Association of Pediatric Medicine, which they say you should be back in school. Go back in school. That's what kids need for a lot of different reasons other than just go back in school. But then the doctors all agree with that, but they can't agree on masks. Half the doctors say wear a mask and half the doctors say don't wear a mask. And so that's where we're at. We're in the middle of these things and trying to figure out, do you take them outside and let them do everything outside? Do you let them sit in the classroom? What about riding a school bus? How do you do all those things? And the times we are in right now are challenging, but I'm going to tell you this. While this is a challenging situation we're in with the pandemic, nothing can come close to what we dealt with a Category 5 hurricane. I believe the skills and the decisions and the experience that the team and I have of getting through that and on our way to recovery from that has helped us continue to realize our focus has to be on the well-being of students. And we're going to do that through this pandemic.
Right, and I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit with kind of the students and parents and teachers facing this double whammy of Hurricane Michael and then a pandemic pushing them out of schools. How do you plan to deal with lingering effects of both of those things?
Very carefully. We've written grants. We've gotten tens of millions of dollars worth of grants to do different things, and it's just, we are so fortunate that most of these grants were written before the pandemic, that we have what we're called, we have a triad of in every school of a team of mental health professionals, that even a social worker in some of them to help, because we did that before the pandemic because some of them are still the lingering effects from the hurricane. And so our plan was already in place, and then the pandemic happened. So we're going to be able to use those resources to help these students as well. The mental health and well-being of our students has got to be the #1 priority. That's what you asked me what my top 3 priorities are. Look, if a student comes to school and they are upset, or they're filled with anxiety, or things aren't going well at home, or their house is destroyed, or they're not eating, they're not getting food, or there's something going on in the family, you can do all you want, but they're not going to learn. They're not going to learn. You have to take care of the well-being of the child before you worry about anything else. And that's what we're focused on. That's our #1 goal. We know that's got to be done first, and we're going to do that first.
And as well, with kind of the combination of Hurricane Michael and COVID-19, school grades for elementary will be decided entirely on 5th grade performance, and this nobody can know what those grades will be considering the amount of instructional time lost. Would you be willing to kind of go to state and seek an exception?
Already done it.
Already done it.
Already done. We've been talking, and look, Commissioner Corcoran is a great guy. I really respect him. I've had very frank conversations with him. I've been to his office. We've talked to other leaders. I believe they will eventually waive that. My gut is they will. They'll see what's going on. But you got to realize that is just the pandemic. But we've been doing this for 2 years now. Our students have had less time in the classroom for 2 consecutive years. Now, we did a heck of a job getting schools started back 30 days after a Category 5 hurricane hit. We did a great job getting them back. But we didn't pick up right when we got back and start instruction. We had to make sure, again, those children were okay. We had to make sure, okay, tell us what's going on in your home. How are you doing? How can we help? And there were a lot of children in counseling and that are still in counseling. And so now we're getting ready to start this all over again, we believe, because there are parents and families out there that are losing their home, that parents have lost their jobs, that they don't have money like they had before the pandemic because of the financial situation their families are in. So there's going to be even more stressors out there that our children are going through. So we know we've got to focus on the well-being of the child. And I know the state understands that that is going to impact any test taking that goes on. And I'm very confident that the state's going to listen to the superintendents and understand they need to back off just a little bit more.
And I kind of wanted to touch on the closing down of many historically black schools, like Ada Harris and Rosenwald, and them becoming alternative high schools. Oscar Patterson is currently closed. What would you kind of do to protect the heritage of these schools and what they mean to the black community?
Well, I met with some of the leaders of the community. Dr. Woods was one of them, and he brought some folks with him, and we talked, and we're talking about reopening Patterson up and starting as a K-2. Currently, early ed is there right now and using probably about half of the facility because their building was destroyed, and they still haven't gotten their building back. So we are working on a plan with Ms. Chapman, one of our board members, and she's working with them as well to figure out what's the best plan to gradually open Patterson back up. Here's the situation and the problem. And this is why before I became superintendent, it was ignored, and then we all of a sudden had to make the tough decisions. If your population drops, if you lose 20% of your population to charter schools, you don't need as many schools as you've had. And where's the population least at? Unfortunately, because of the hurricane, the Panama City population was the most devastated. The homes around Panama City were the most devastated, along with Tyndall and Mexico Beach. But they were obliterated, and Callaway and Parker and Lynn Haven and Springfield and all those also. But the affordable housing was almost just vanished overnight. We lost 25% of our Title I population on this side of the bridge after the hurricane. And so we had to make some tough decisions about closing schools and repurposing schools again because we lost so many students. Springfield and Everett is an area that Springfield was very badly damaged, as was Everett. And so we've got an architect working on making that a K-8 and making a collaborative. We own the whole block there, which is a great thing. So we can very easily build a brand new school there, K-8, or mostly new school, because some of those buildings are very usable, but that's in the plans too. We want to bring those schools back, but we have to wait until the populations come back. We can't just open them up when the populations don't live there right now.
Mm-hmm. And with those two schools, Everett and Springfield, how do you plan to rebuild this school to achieve the highest possible performance of the students in that area?
Well, one of the things we're doing, and we have 8 schools this fall that everything's either before the pandemic or before the hurricane. There's some technical training that our teachers are going through in 8 of our elementary schools this year to bring in some very cool CTE programs for elementary kids, flying drones and coding and different things like that. That's what we've got to get into. We have got to get into putting the 21st century technology into the hands of the kids and let them show us what they can do with it. And that's what we are doing at the new beach school we're going to build that's already under construction. And that's what we want to do at the K-8 that we're going to put Springfield and Everett. We want to bring those programs in. As I said, we're bringing the really neat, it's called WAZ-Ed, after one of the co-founders of Apple, the WAZ-Ed program in 8 of our elementary schools for this year coming, and wanting to expand that to all of them the following year. But those are the kind of things we have to do to these schools to help energize the faculty and the kids and the community to get behind them.
Mm-hmm. And so I kind of want to jump over to staff. And as I've been doing these interviews and talking to potential school board members, and a lot of them have been saying that morale is sort of low among teachers. And I guess the question is, how do you bring up your current teachers so that they don't feel underappreciated by brand new teachers coming in at basically the same or just below pay rate?
Well, what you're addressing is not a Bay District issue, but a state issue, because the funding that we're getting for the teacher raises is not controlled by us. In fact, that legislation, the governor, and I'm thankful the governor did that. I mean, I believe teachers should all make more money, but that funding that we're getting specifically is targeted at the newer teachers to get their salaries up higher. And I understand that. I wish there was more for everybody, but people are frustrated by that, and I understand that. You know, you tell me a time when teachers thought they were paid correctly. There's never been a time when teachers were paid as much as they should. So that's always going to be an issue or a concern for teachers. I think that what's happened is, though, since the pandemic and we have asked parents to become teachers, they realize how valuable teachers are. So I think that the country is realizing, and every survey I've read since all this began has been positive towards paying teachers more. I think the governor realizes that now more than ever before. That's why he did not veto the teacher raise. He supported it. And I think that people don't realize this, but we control very little of the funding we get. It's mostly directed from Tallahassee, and it's very specific about how it's supposed to be spent. And so this funding to pay the teachers more money, while I know it's frustrating to some of the teachers that are more experienced aren't going to get some of that, I'm going to look at the positive side and say I'm glad for those teachers that are getting it, and let's start fighting for more money from Tallahassee for the rest of the teachers.
So you have no control over how to allocate that money?
Well, here's the way it is. 80% of that money has to go to the bottom salaried teachers. 20% of it is out there that we get to decide what to do with it, and we'll negotiate that with the union. We've got a great relationship with the teachers union. I know they know we're doing all we can to help all teachers. But that is definitely a state and a union issue.
Okay. And how do you think the half-cent sales tax money should be spent moving forward?
Well, the half-cent sales tax money, and I'm surprised most people don't know this, because when I came into office in 2008, the voters had just rejected it. They didn't trust what was going on with it. So in 2010, we got it back on the ballot, and I went around with a plan to civic groups and community groups and anybody that would listen, and showed them. And we've got a sheet that says the way the money's going to be spent. We have projects, which also includes technology, about how the money's going to be spent. So the decision about how it's going to be spent is already out there. It's public. I mean, I can't say that money did not go to you, that money was not used to build a new school. But that school could have been on the list, but it was not on the list. Now, there are projects for all schools on the list, and so that half-cent, because we have that half-cent is monitored by a Citizens Oversight Committee. So that Citizens Oversight Committee takes that list that the voters approved, that we advertise to the voters we're asking to do, and they make sure that's the way we spend the money. And we have. All our reports have been very positive, and so we're spending the money just as we said we would. And by the way, we just got it renewed because the voters trusted what we did with it for the first 10 years, and it's renewed all the way through 2020.
Does it change?
2030. I can't believe we're there at 2030 already.
Does the pandemic at all change the way that money is spent?
No, because we took it to the voters and told them how that money was going to be spent. See, what most people don't understand is that money for capital projects, school buses, buildings, roofs, the half-cent, we can't use it for teacher salaries. We're not allowed to by law. We cannot use it for salaries at all. Those funds, by state law, must be used for capital projects. And again, capital projects are like flooring, roof, paint, doors, buildings, land to build buildings on, construction, school buses, all those things. That money can only be used on those things. We can't use that money to pay teachers. And so I know sometimes teachers go, well, use the half-cent sales tax. Well, we can't use the half-cent sales tax because we're not allowed to by law.
I guess my question was more because of the pandemic, would that maybe, instead of using it for one thing, would you maybe buy more school buses so that you can spread out the kids more or something?
Well, but you asked a good question, but here's the problem with the school buses. We don't have enough school bus drivers now. So even if I could buy 50 more school buses, I couldn't find 50 more drivers. And I mentioned to you earlier that some of the heavy equipment companies in town that have big machines, they can't find enough workers. So I couldn't get, even if I had more school buses, finding the bus drivers would be a huge issue and concern. So just add that to the list of problems that the pandemic's brought to us.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I think that's all I have. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Mia, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for your time today. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you learned something new about Superintendent Husfelt today. You can revisit this broadcast on mypanhandle.com's Meet the Candidates page under the Your Local Elections Headquarters tab. Tomorrow, I'll be sitting down with opposing candidate Judy Hobbs-Vandergrift at 2 p.m., so make sure to tune in then. But that's all for today. I'm Mia Salzano, live for 13 Now. See you tomorrow.
Believer.